Olivia stared at the glossy invitation on the kitchen table, her emotions a mix of excitement and trepidation. It was from her high school alumni committee, announcing the 15-year reunion. Memories of laughter, dreams, and heartbreak came flooding back. She longed to reconnect with old friends and revisit the halls that once held her ambitions. But a nervous flutter settled in her chest when she thought about attending with her husband, Alan. Alan, ever pragmatic and skeptical of sentimentality, had little patience for nostalgia. When Olivia showed him the invitation over dinner, he glanced at it briefly before tossing it back on the table. "Reunions are just people pretending to be more successful than they really are," he remarked, cutting into his steak. Olivia forced a smile, pushing back the sting of his words. She'd always known Alan to be dismissive of things he didn't see as productive, but his cynicism never failed to dim her enthusiasm. Still, she resolved to attend, hoping it might reignite the flicker of dreams she had almost forgotten. As the date drew closer, Olivia prepared with care. She selected a modest yet elegant dress and rehearsed small anecdotes about her life to share with her classmates. Despite her modest job as a cashier at a local grocery store, she harbored dreams of one day opening a bakery, a dream she'd nurtured since her teenage years. But mentioning this dream to Alan was always met with exasperated sighs or, worse, derisive laughter. This time, she decided not to bring it up. On the eve of the reunion, Olivia found herself staring out of the bedroom window, her thoughts adrift. She imagined herself at the reunion, sharing her dream with people who might actually believe in her. But Alan's dismissive voice echoed in her mind, a constant reminder of the obstacles she faced, not from strangers, but from the person who was supposed to support her the most. With a heavy sigh, she resolved to go, clinging to the hope that this night might spark a change. The evening of the reunion arrived, and Olivia's nerves simmered beneath her carefully composed exterior. As she adjusted her dress in the mirror, Alan lounged on the bed scrolling through his phone. "You look fine," he muttered without looking up. Olivia hesitated, wishing for a different reaction, but pushed the thought aside. They arrived at the venue, a charming banquet hall draped in soft lights and echoes of laughter. Inside, the air buzzed with excitement and the warmth of old connections rekindled. Olivia scanned the room, spotting familiar faces and exchanging polite waves. Alan, however, stuck close, his expression unreadable but tinged with impatience. At the dinner table, surrounded by her former classmates, Olivia cautiously brought up her bakery dream. "I've been saving recipes and practicing," she said, her voice tinged with enthusiasm. "One day, I'd love to open a little shop." Alan snorted audibly, drawing eyes from across the table. "A bakery? Really?" he said, his tone dripping with incredulity. "Do you even know how much work and money that takes? Let's be real, Olivia, it's impossible for someone like you." The laughter that followed wasn't loud, but it was enough to make Olivia's cheeks burn. She felt her chest tighten as Alan leaned back, smug in his assessment. She dropped her gaze to her plate, willing herself not to cry. By the time the dinner plates were cleared, Olivia was second-guessing her decision to attend. Alan's behavior had cast a shadow over the evening, but she resolved not to let his derision ruin her night. Wandering to the bar, she struck up a conversation with an old friend, Emma, who'd been the kind of person to light up every room in high school. Emma listened intently as Olivia recounted her bakery dream, nodding with genuine interest. But just as Olivia began to feel a spark of confidence, Alan appeared at her side. "There you are," he said, cutting off the conversation. "I was telling the guys how you've been dreaming of running a bakery. They think it's cute." The condescension in his voice was unmistakable. Emma's smile faltered, and Olivia felt a pang of embarrassment she couldn't shake. It wasn't just the words, it was the way Alan seemed to delight in minimizing her. As the evening wore on, Olivia drifted through the crowd, seeking solace in brief exchanges with kinder faces. But Alan's looming presence and cutting remarks reminded her of the gulf between the life she'd once envisioned and the reality she inhabited. She stepped outside into the cool night air, taking deep breaths to steady herself. Staring at the stars, she wondered if the girl she used to be, the one brimming with hope and ambition, was still somewhere within her. As Olivia gazed up at the night sky, a familiar voice called her name. Turning, she saw her childhood friend Sarah approaching with a warm smile. Sarah had always been her confidant, the one who knew her heart better than anyone else. They hugged tightly, the years melting away in an instant. "I heard Alan's comment earlier," Sarah said gently. "Are you okay?" Olivia hesitated, the vulnerability of her emotions catching her off guard. But as Sarah's compassionate gaze held hers, she found herself sharing more than she intended. "It's just, he's always like this," Olivia admitted. "It's hard to keep believing in myself when the person closest to me doesn't." Sarah's eyes flashed with indignation. "Olivia, don't let anyone, not even Alan, convince you that your dreams aren't worth pursuing." Their conversation buoyed Olivia, restoring some of the confidence Alan had chipped away. They reminisced about their teenage years, laughing over shared memories. For the first time that evening, Olivia felt seen, not as Alan's wife or a cashier, but as the Olivia who had always dared to dream. As they walked back inside together, she resolved to hold on to that feeling, no matter what challenges lay ahead. As the reunion transitioned into a more casual gathering, the event's host announced an open mic session. Attendees were invited to share memories, updates, or stories about their lives since high school. Olivia hesitated as she saw several familiar faces take the stage, each recounting tales of career triumphs, family milestones, and personal achievements. Alan nudged her lightly, his smirk as sharp as ever. "Why don't you go up there and talk about your little bakery idea? That should get some laughs." The words stung, but Olivia found herself walking toward the microphone anyway. Her hands trembled as she adjusted the stand. "Hi, everyone," she began, her voice shaky but determined. "I'm Olivia. I've been working as a cashier for several years now, but I've always dreamed of opening a bakery. It's something I've been passionate about since I was a teenager." For a moment, there was silence, then Alan's loud, mocking laugh echoed across the room. "Really, Olivia? A bakery?" he called out, his voice dripping with sarcasm. The crowd joined in with polite but awkward chuckles, unsure whether to follow his lead. Olivia's face flushed as the weight of humiliation settled over her. She managed a faint smile and stepped down, wishing the floor would swallow her whole. Alan's smug grin was the last thing she saw before slipping out of the room. Outside the hall, Olivia sat on a bench, her head in her hands. The crisp night air did little to cool the heat of embarrassment that burned within her. She replayed the moment on stage, the laughter, and Alan's cutting remark. Her dream, which had once felt so tangible, now seemed like a distant and foolish fantasy. She questioned why she'd ever allowed herself to believe it was possible. Inside, the atmosphere had shifted. Some attendees whispered about Alan's behavior, their laughter replaced by disapproval. A few friends who had admired Olivia's courage began to voice their support quietly, though Alan remained oblivious, basking in his perceived victory. Olivia, however, couldn't bring herself to re-enter the room. She felt exposed, her vulnerability laid bare for all to see. As she sat alone, footsteps approached. It was Sarah, her face a mixture of concern and frustration. "Olivia, don't let him do this to you," Sarah said firmly. "You have every right to dream and to succeed. If Alan can't see that, then that's his problem, not yours." Olivia nodded, her tears threatening to spill over. Sarah's words were a balm, but the ache of humiliation remained. Just as Olivia was beginning to gather herself, the sound of a car pulling up drew her attention. The door opened, and a man stepped out, his silhouette backlit by the parking lot lights. Olivia squinted, trying to place the face that seemed so oddly familiar. As he walked closer, recognition struck like a bolt of lightning. It was Matthew, her high school mentor and one of the few people who had always believed in her potential. Matthew greeted her warmly, his smile genuine. "Olivia!" "It's been years," he exclaimed, pulling her into a quick hug. She found herself smiling for the first time that evening. "I didn't know you'd be here," Olivia said, her voice tinged with surprise and relief. Matthew explained that he'd been invited last minute by another classmate and had nearly skipped the event altogether. "I'm glad I came," he said. "It's good to see you." Olivia briefly recounted her evening, glossing over the humiliation she'd endured, but Matthew's sharp eyes caught the sadness she tried to hide. "Let's go inside," he said. "I want to hear about this bakery of yours." Back inside, Matthew's presence turned heads. He had become a well-known entrepreneur since high school, respected for his philanthropy and business acumen. When the host noticed him, they eagerly invited him to the stage. "Matthew, why don't you share a few words with us?" the host asked, handing him the microphone. The crowd erupted into applause, welcoming one of their most successful peers. Matthew began with a story about perseverance and the power of dreams, weaving in lessons he'd learned throughout his career. As he spoke, Olivia felt her heart lighten. Then, to her astonishment, Matthew shifted his focus. "You know," he said, his voice warm, "there's someone here tonight who inspired me more than they realize." "Olivia, can I share a story about you?" The room fell silent. Olivia froze, unsure whether to nod or run, but Matthew pressed on. He recounted their high school days when Olivia had shared her passion for baking and her dream of one day owning a bakery. "She had such determination, even then," Matthew said, smiling. "It's that kind of passion that leads to success." As Matthew spoke, the audience hung on his every word. He described how Olivia had once baked cookies for a charity event, using every spare moment to perfect her recipe. "She wasn't just talented," Matthew said. "She cared deeply about bringing joy to others through her craft. That's something money can't buy." Alan, sitting in the audience, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His earlier mockery now seemed out of place, dwarfed by the genuine admiration in Matthew's voice. Olivia felt a mix of gratitude and disbelief as Matthew continued to champion her dream, painting a picture of her that she hadn't dared to believe in herself. By the time Matthew finished, the room erupted into applause. Olivia blinked back tears, overwhelmed by the unexpected support. For the first time that evening, she felt seen, not as a failure, but as someone with the potential to achieve something extraordinary. As the applause subsided, Olivia noticed the subtle shift in the room's energy. People were whispering, nodding toward her with smiles of encouragement. Alan, however, sat stiffly, his expression a mix of discomfort and irritation. For years, he had dismissed Olivia's dreams as childish, and now here was a respected entrepreneur lauding her vision in front of everyone. One classmate, a former teacher now working in event planning, approached Alan. "You must be so proud of Olivia," she said, her tone laced with genuine admiration. Alan forced a smile, but his jaw tightened. "Of course," he replied, though his usual confidence seemed to falter. As others chimed in with similar sentiments, Alan grew visibly uneasy. Olivia observed Alan's discomfort from a distance, a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness settling over her. For years, his dismissal of her dreams had made her doubt herself. Now, the tables had turned, and it was Alan's dismissiveness that looked small and petty in the eyes of others. But instead of relishing his discomfort, Olivia felt a quiet resolve build within her. This wasn't about Alan, it was about reclaiming her belief in herself. As the evening wore on, Matthew approached Olivia again. "I wasn't kidding when I said your dream inspired me," he said with a warm smile. "And I meant what I said up there. If you're serious about opening a bakery, I'd like to help." Olivia blinked in surprise. "Help? How?" she asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. Matthew chuckled. "I invest in small businesses all the time. I can't think of a better investment than someone as passionate and hardworking as you." Olivia's heart raced. The idea of turning her dream into reality had always felt so far out of reach, but here was Matthew, offering her a chance. "I don't know," she stammered. "I don't have the experience," and she trailed off, her confidence faltering as doubts crept in. Matthew placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to know everything right now," he said. "That's what mentors and resources are for. Think about it." Across the room, Alan watched the exchange with a sour expression. He didn't intervene, but his irritation was evident. Olivia, however, felt a spark reignite within her, a flicker of hope she hadn't felt in years. For the first time, her dream seemed less like an impossibility and more like a challenge she might actually conquer. On the drive home, Alan's frustration finally boiled over. "I can't believe you let him embarrass me like that," he snapped, gripping the steering wheel tightly. Olivia stared out the window, her emotions swirling. "Embarrass you?" she asked softly, disbelief creeping into her voice. "He wasn't talking about you, Alan. He was talking about me. My dream." Alan scoffed. "Your dream," he repeated mockingly. "Do you even understand how much it would cost to start a bakery? Do you know anything about running a business? This isn't some high school fantasy, Olivia, it's real life." His words stung, but Olivia found herself feeling more resolute than ever. "Maybe I don't know everything," she admitted. "But that doesn't mean I can't learn. And I'm tired of pretending I don't want more just because it makes you uncomfortable." The rest of the drive was silent, the tension between them palpable. Olivia's mind raced with a mix of fear and determination. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, not with Alan's resistance and her own doubts to contend with. But for the first time in years, she felt a glimmer of belief in her ability to rise above the challenges. The days following the reunion brought an unexpected wave of support. Former classmates reached out through social media, offering encouragement and advice. Many shared their own stories of pursuing dreams against the odds, reminding Olivia that she wasn't alone. Sarah, ever the loyal friend, even offered to help research potential bakery locations. Alan, however, remained cold and distant. He scoffed whenever Olivia mentioned her plans, dismissing them as unrealistic. "You're getting carried away," he said one evening. "These people are just being polite. Don't let them fill your head with nonsense." But Olivia was no longer willing to let Alan's negativity dictate her actions. "It's not nonsense," she replied firmly. It's my dream, and I'm going to give it a shot." Alan's dismissiveness only strengthened her resolve. With Matthew's guidance and her friend's support, Olivia began taking small but meaningful steps toward her goal. She researched business plans, attended workshops, and started testing recipes with Sarah's help. Each step brought her closer to a vision that had once felt unattainable, and she refused to let Alan's doubts hold her back. One afternoon, while experimenting with recipes in her small kitchen, Olivia felt a sense of fulfillment she hadn't experienced in years. Flour dusted her hands, the scent of freshly baked bread filled the air, and Sarah laughed beside her as they tried to perfect a new frosting technique. For the first time, Olivia allowed herself to fully embrace the joy her dream brought her. When she looked up from her work, she caught Alan watching from the doorway. His expression was unreadable, a mix of curiosity and something she couldn't quite place. "Looks like you're really serious about this," he said, his tone softer than usual. Olivia nodded, her voice steady. "I am. This is what I want, Alan. Whether you support me or not, I'm going to make it happen." Alan didn't respond immediately. Instead, he lingered for a moment before retreating to the living room. Olivia watched him go, her emotions conflicted. She wanted his support, but she was no longer willing to wait for it. Her dream was hers to chase, and she was determined to see it through, no matter what it took. With Matthew's guidance, Olivia began crafting a business plan. She spent evenings poring over spreadsheets, calculating costs, and researching the best suppliers for her ingredients. It was daunting, but each step brought her closer to her dream. Sarah, ever supportive, acted as her sounding board, helping refine her ideas and offering encouragement when doubt crept in. Olivia found herself thriving in this new challenge, her confidence slowly rebuilding. Her small kitchen became a testing ground for her creations. Neighbors began to notice the tantalizing aromas wafting from her home, and Sarah encouraged her to distribute samples. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive. "This is incredible," one neighbor exclaimed, holding up a perfectly frosted cupcake. "I'd buy these in a heartbeat." Olivia blushed, but the praise bolstered her resolve. Alan, however, remained skeptical. He watched from the sidelines, his arms crossed, as Olivia juggled her responsibilities at work and her burgeoning dream. "It's cute that you're playing baker," he remarked one evening, "but this is just a hobby, right?" Olivia didn't respond immediately. Instead, she met his gaze and said, "No, Alan. This is my future." As Olivia's plans progressed, Alan's resistance intensified. He mocked her efforts, belittled her achievements, and dismissed her successes as flukes. "You're wasting time," he said one evening as Olivia worked late into the night. "Do you really think you can turn this into something sustainable?" His words cut deep, but Olivia refused to let them deter her. Her resolve only grew stronger. Each snide comment from Alan became fuel for her determination. She leaned on her growing support system, Matthew, Sarah, and her network of neighbors, to counterbalance Alan's negativity. "You can't let him get to you," Sarah reminded her during one of their baking sessions. "This is your dream, not his." Despite the friction at home, Olivia found solace in her work. She started attending local farmers markets to gauge interest in her products. The reception was overwhelmingly positive, and she began to see the first glimmers of what her bakery could become. Though Alan remained a thorn in her side, Olivia felt her confidence solidify. She was building something real, and nothing, not even Alan's scorn, could take that away from her. Olivia's persistence began to pay off. She secured a small loan with Matthew's help, enough to lease a modest shop in town. It wasn't much, a quaint storefront with peeling paint and a leaky faucet, but to Olivia, it was perfect. She poured herself into renovating the space, painting walls, scrubbing floors, and setting up display cases. Sarah and a handful of friends volunteered their time, turning the once neglected space into a cozy haven. The day Olivia hung the sign, Sweet Haven Bakery, above the door, tears filled her eyes. It was a simple, hand-painted sign, but it represented years of dreaming and months of hard work. Alan, however, remained unimpressed. "Don't get too comfortable," he said when Olivia shared the news. "Businesses fail all the time." Still, Olivia refused to let his negativity overshadow her accomplishments. She focused on preparing for the grand opening, perfecting her recipes and spreading the word in the community. Excitement buzzed through her network of supporters, and Olivia dared to believe that her bakery might succeed. As the bakery's opening day approached, tensions at home reached a breaking point. Alan's dismissive comments became sharper, his patience thinner. He complained about the time Olivia spent at the bakery, accusing her of neglecting her responsibilities at home. "This isn't just about you," he snapped one evening. "What about us? What about our marriage?" Olivia felt a pang of guilt, but it was quickly replaced by frustration. "Alan, I've spent years putting everyone else first," she said, her voice trembling. "This is my chance to do something for myself. Can't you see how much this means to me?" Alan shook his head, his expression unreadable. "I just don't want to see you fail," he muttered before retreating to the bedroom. The distance between them grew wider with each passing day. Olivia threw herself into her work, finding joy and purpose in her bakery. But at night, as she lay alone in bed, she couldn't help but wonder if her dream was worth the cost of her marriage. Opening day arrived with a flurry of excitement. Olivia had spent weeks preparing, and her hard work showed in every detail. The bakery's shelves were lined with neatly arranged pastries, cupcakes, and loaves of bread. The air was filled with the warm, comforting aroma of freshly baked goods. A small line had already formed outside when Olivia unlocked the door. To her surprise and delight, the community showed up in droves. Former classmates, neighbors, and even strangers came to support her. Sarah worked the register, while Matthew mingled with customers, sharing the story of Olivia's journey. The bakery buzzed with life, and for the first time, Olivia allowed herself to believe she had made the right choice. Alan arrived late, his expression guarded as he watched the bustling crowd. He stood at the back, saying little but observing everything. Olivia caught his eye, unsure of what he was thinking. She hoped he might see what she had built and finally understand its importance to her. But Alan remained silent, leaving her to navigate her triumph alone. As the weeks went by, the bakery flourished. Word of Olivia's delicious creations spread, and the shop became a beloved fixture in the community. Alan, however, remained distant, his skepticism a constant undercurrent in their conversations. But one evening, as Olivia locked up for the night, she found Alan waiting outside. "I wanted to talk," he said, his tone uncharacteristically soft. Olivia hesitated but nodded, unlocking the door to let him inside. Alan looked around the bakery, taking in the cozy space and the remnants of the day's success. "You've really done something here," he admitted, his voice tinged with both awe and regret. "I didn't think you could, but you proved me wrong." Olivia's breath caught in her throat. She had waited years to hear those words, but now that they had come, she wasn't sure how to respond. "This wasn't just about proving you wrong," she said gently. "It was about proving to myself that I could do it." Alan nodded, his eyes softening. "I see that now," he said. "And I'm sorry for not believing in you." Despite the bakery's growing success, the road wasn't without its bumps. On what was expected to be a particularly busy weekend, Olivia woke up to a series of setbacks. The delivery truck carrying her flour was delayed, and her assistant called in sick. Panic bubbled under the surface, but Olivia steadied herself. She reminded herself how far she'd come and that challenges were part of the journey. At the bakery, customers began to line up, and Olivia juggled taking orders, preparing pastries, and working the register. Sarah, who had come to help, noticed Olivia's strained smile and took over the front counter, allowing Olivia to focus on baking. The stress was palpable, but as the day unfolded, Olivia found her rhythm. The aroma of fresh pastries filled the shop, and satisfied customers left glowing reviews. By the end of the day, Olivia was exhausted but proud. Despite the chaos, she had managed to pull it off. Alan, who had watched her navigate the challenges from a corner table, finally spoke. "You handled that like a pro," he said, his tone uncharacteristically warm. Olivia gave him a small, tired smile. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Over the next few weeks, Olivia noticed subtle shifts in Alan's behavior. He began asking questions about the bakery, how her recipes were developed, where she sourced her ingredients, and how she planned to grow the business. At first, Olivia was hesitant, unsure if his interest was genuine. But as their conversations deepened, she realized he was trying to understand her world. One evening, as Olivia prepped for the next day's orders, Alan surprised her by rolling up his sleeves and offering to help. "I'm not much of a baker," he said sheepishly, "but I can wash dishes or mix batter if you need." Olivia blinked, startled by the gesture. "I'd like that," she said softly, handing him an apron. The moment felt fragile, like the first step in rebuilding a bridge. As they worked side by side, Alan seemed more at ease than he had in months. For the first time, Olivia felt a glimmer of hope, not just for her bakery, but for their marriage. The bakery's one-month anniversary was marked by a bustling celebration. Olivia had decided to host a small community event, offering free samples and discounts as a thank you to her customers. The shop was filled with laughter, music, and the smell of fresh pastries. Children ran around with frosting-stained faces, and loyal customers praised Olivia's hard work. Matthew and Sarah were there, of course, their pride evident as they helped with the festivities. Alan, too, mingled with the crowd, his usual stoicism replaced by a genuine smile. At one point, he stood next to Matthew, who was regaling a group with Olivia's story. "You've got a remarkable wife," Matthew said, glancing at Alan. "She's done something incredible here." Alan nodded, his expression thoughtful. "She's stronger than I ever gave her credit for," he admitted. As the event wound down, Olivia took a moment to soak it all in. Her shop, her dream, was alive and thriving. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel pride, not just in the bakery, but in herself. Later that evening, as Olivia cleaned up the bakery, Alan lingered nearby. He seemed nervous, his hands fidgeting as he searched for the right words. Finally, he cleared his throat. "Olivia," he began, his voice low but steady. "I owe you an apology for everything. I've been dismissive and unsupportive, and I see now how much that hurt you." Olivia paused, her hands stilling over the counter. Alan continued, his words pouring out in a rush. "I think I was afraid. Afraid that if you succeeded, it would make me feel less. But seeing you like this, seeing how happy and fulfilled you are, I realize how wrong I was. I'm proud of you, Olivia. I really am." Tears welled in Olivia's eyes as she turned to face him. "I wanted your support so badly," she said softly. "But I'm glad you're here now." Alan nodded, his gaze earnest. "I want to be better, for you, for us. If you'll let me." Olivia smiled, a weight she hadn't realized she was carrying finally lifting. "We'll figure it out," she said. "Together." As the months passed, Sweet Haven Bakery became a beloved staple of the community. Customers flocked to the shop not just for the delicious treats but for the warm, inviting atmosphere Olivia had cultivated. She expanded her offerings, introducing seasonal specials and hosting weekend workshops on baking basics. The joy she found in her work was palpable, and it spread to everyone who entered her shop. Alan, true to his word, became more involved. He helped with bookkeeping and even took over some of the more tedious tasks, freeing Olivia to focus on her craft. Their relationship began to heal, the cracks mended by mutual effort and understanding. Olivia marveled at the transformation, not just in Alan, but in herself. She had discovered a strength she hadn't known she possessed. Her success didn't go unnoticed. A local newspaper featured Sweet Haven in a glowing article, calling it a testament to resilience and the power of dreams. Olivia clipped the article and framed it, hanging it proudly in the shop. It was a reminder of how far she had come and a symbol of what she had achieved. One day, Olivia received a letter from the local Chamber of Commerce, inviting her to an awards gala. Sweet Haven Bakery had been nominated for the Entrepreneur of the Year award, a recognition of her contributions to the community. Olivia was stunned. She had never sought accolades, but the nomination felt like validation for years of hard work and sacrifice. The night of the gala, Olivia wore a simple but elegant dress. Alan stood by her side, his pride evident as he introduced her to other attendees. When Olivia's name was called, she walked to the stage, her heart pounding. As she accepted the award, she spoke from the heart. "This bakery started as a dream," she said. "But it became a reality because of the support of this community and the people who believed in me, even when I struggled to believe in myself." The audience erupted into applause, and Olivia felt a swell of emotion. She had doubted herself so many times, but now, standing on that stage, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. A year after her high school reunion, Olivia received another invitation, a smaller gathering for a select group of classmates. This time, the thought of attending didn't fill her with anxiety. Sweet Haven Bakery had become a local sensation, and Olivia felt a newfound confidence in sharing her journey. Alan, to her surprise, encouraged her to go. "You should show them how far you've come," he said with a proud smile. The event was held at a cozy vineyard on the outskirts of town. As Olivia entered the room, heads turned, and she was greeted with warm smiles and genuine interest. Former classmates who had once dismissed her now approached with admiration. "I heard about your bakery," one said. "Everyone's talking about it. You've done something amazing." Alan, standing at her side, handled the attention differently this time. Instead of overshadowing her or deflecting praise, he simply said, "She's incredible, isn't she?" Olivia beamed, feeling a sense of validation she hadn't known she needed. The evening passed in a blur of laughter and connection, a stark contrast to the humiliation she'd endured a year before. Back at the bakery the next morning, Olivia reflected on the whirlwind of the past year. She thought about the girl she had been, unsure, hesitant, and weighed down by doubt, and the woman she had become. Sweet Haven wasn't just a business, it was a manifestation of her resilience and the support of those who had believed in her. Matthew continued to mentor her, helping her expand her offerings and streamline her operations. Sarah had become a part-time employee, her bubbly energy a perfect fit for the shop. Even Alan, once her biggest critic, now played an active role in the bakery's success. The business thrived, but so did Olivia's sense of self-worth. One evening, as they closed up shop, Alan handed her a small notebook. "What's this?" Olivia asked, flipping through the pages to find sketches of ideas for a second location. "It's just a thought," Alan said. "You've built something incredible here. Maybe it's time to think about what's next." Olivia smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. For the first time, the future felt limitless. With Sweet Haven flourishing, Olivia began exploring new opportunities. She partnered with local schools to teach baking classes, sharing her skills with the next generation. She also hosted charity events, donating proceeds to community projects. The bakery became more than a business, it became a beacon of hope and inspiration. Alan's involvement deepened as well. He surprised Olivia by enrolling in a business management course, determined to contribute meaningfully to her expanding venture. "If we're going to grow this," he said one evening, "I want to make sure we do it right." Olivia felt a surge of pride, not just in her dream, but in the partnership they had rebuilt. As Sweet Haven expanded into catering and workshops, Olivia hired and mentored young talent, giving others the opportunity to chase their dreams. The bakery's success was no longer just hers, it belonged to everyone who had supported and believed in her. Years later, as Olivia stood in Sweet Haven's bustling kitchen, the smell of fresh bread and the sound of laughter filled the air. The bakery had grown into a thriving enterprise with 3 locations, but Olivia remained rooted in the original shop. She loved greeting customers, mentoring her staff, and being part of the community that had embraced her so wholeheartedly. Alan entered, carrying a tray of croissants. "The new batch is ready," he said with a grin. Olivia laughed, marveling at how far they had come, not just as business partners, but as a couple. Their journey had been fraught with challenges, but it had also brought them closer than ever. That evening, as they locked up the bakery and walked home together, Olivia reflected on the lessons she had learned. Dreams required courage, perseverance, and belief, not just in the dream itself, but in the person chasing it. She had faced humiliation, doubt, and resistance, but she had risen above it all. And now, standing on the other side, she knew that the journey was just as important as the destination. As they approached their house, Alan paused and took her hand. "You proved everyone wrong, Olivia," he said softly. "Including me. I'm so proud of you." Olivia smiled, her heart full. "And I'm proud of us," she replied. Together, they walked inside, ready to face whatever came next, side by side.